I have had a maker's request. Now, I have made many puppet hands in the past, but when my friend John came to me with a challenge, I knew I couldn't let him down. So join me as I walk you through how to make live puppet hands. Now, you may or may not have seen last week, but my friend John has commissioned me to make Ramona. Ramona is a punky puppet that is needed for a film. He's making a film. So I am making him live puppet hands to feature on said puppet for said film. So I'm going to walk you through how I make live hands. It's a really fun adaptation for your puppet. I should also say that I am visiting family for the week and I am in my bedroom. This is my first ever puppet studio and it's not very even. The house is quite old. So when I put things on the table, they don't stay there. While we're here and before we start, I should do the usual disclaimer. I use a mixture of very professional and incredibly unprofessional methods when making my puppets. If you see something here today that works for you, that's fantastic. But if you see something that you just can't stand, that's fine too. This is just how I make mine. So with that said, we shall progress on. I'm going to put that standing up so that it doesn't keep rolling away. Essentially, what we're doing here is making a large glove. And it also potentially inspired me in the future to make a Halloween costume as a full-length puppet, and you could very easily be on your way with one of these. Essentially, what we've got, you can get loads of patterns online, but if you can't get a pattern online, literally just get a piece of paper, chuck your hand down and draw all the way around the edge. The first hurdle you might notice is that puppets have 3 big fingers and they have 1 thumb, whereas we have 4 fingers, of course. But what we would do as you operate is kind of like a Spocky type, is it Spock? Like a Spocky type thing. So you put 2 fingers in the last one and then 1 finger in each one and a thumb in this. So if I go in here, I've got my 2 fingers at the end, my middle finger in the middle, and then everything else has its own thing. But the ones at the end, that's 2, so that shares. When you get your piece of paper and you lay your hand down, just make sure that you've spread it like that so that you can get an even balance around your hand. And as you draw around your hand, I would just give it a long, lovely bit of space over each one so that any operator, big or small, can fit their hands in. So I've got this pattern here from Adam. He's amazing. He sadly passed away, but his channel is alive and well, and I do suggest you strongly look into it because it's a lot more professional than me. So you can see that it's quite much larger than the average hand, and that's really good. So what I've done is I've drawn this out, and the way that I did it was I got the normal hand pattern here that ends at the cuff, and then if I line this up here, we can see that the rectangle extra bit I've made is about 9 centimeters, and that is totally up to you. You can make this bit in black as well. I don't have any black, but you can make this bit in black as well, but I'm just going to make it in pink. So I've got the main glove part, and then I've added a little bit extra on the end so that we encompass and we get that whole arm safe and secure. So that's what I've done there. And I'm going to show you what I've done so far. So I've cut out 2 of my little gloves here, and I've added that extra bit of distance that we spoke about. So I've got these 2 bits here, and I've also got another rectangle here, and this thing is for the arm that's going to attach into the body of Ramona. So you can see you've got this thin bit here. These type of puppets work really well if you have like a fluffy fabric. If you can give it a little bit of a shaggy vibe, I would strongly recommend, if you're going to make a puppet that requires some little live hands, to use fluff, because it just looks a lot better in my personal opinion. So I've got these bits here all cut out, and I'm going to begin by quite an arduous process of lining these up and sewing them together. So I'm going to leave this bottom bit open, of course, so that I can put my arm in, but I'm going to connect these 2 glove parts all the way around painstakingly by hand, because I did not bring my sewing machine with me. I actually didn't bring anything with me. I have no tools. I'm just going off what my mum has to lend to me. So I'm going to do the best I can in the situation that I'm in. I will start this and a few hours will go by in my personal life, but for you it will be seconds. So I'm going to begin stitching this all the way around, just a simple in and out, and then I shall rejoin you. Okie dokie. So that took me about an hour in real time because I was sewing physically without the aid of machines. And now I've got my glove sort of shape here, and I'm going to turn it inside out and get all those fingers to come out. And it's quite easy to do that this time because it is kind of like the shape of your hand. So I'm just pulling it out, and then I'm just going to bring my hand and push it in and try and wiggle those bits out. Okay, amazing. So now we've got our left hand here. I'm just going to going to quickly do a little example so you can get the vibe and see the vision. So it will look something like this, and it will look like your hands are the hands of your puppet. Usually, when you have puppets with live hands, such as this one, you'll have something called a sack puppet or a sack body. It basically kind of just looks like a flat piece of material, and then you'll have the hands sort of shaggy over the edge. Puppets like these need 2 people to operate it. Notable puppets that have been operated like this are Fozzie Bear from the Muppets and Trekkie Monster from Avenue Q. I love Avenue Q, by the way. I went to see it when I was a child, and it is not for children. But we thought it was a puppet show for children, and it is not for children. But I do recommend it anyway. So now I've got my little glove here. The next step is to make this little arm attachment part onto the glove so that it looks like her real arm and hands. And the way I'm going to do that is I've got my bicep pattern here, which is essentially just a rectangle long like this, and all I'm going to do is sew it together like so, and then I'm going to sew one side of it shut, stuff it, attach it to the arm, and then sew around the arm, if that makes sense. So I'm going to begin by getting my rectangle and folding it outside in. I'm going to level with you. I didn't have as much pink fabric as I thought I needed, and when John first asked me to make Ramona and picked pink, I thought it would be a shoo-in. But then when John asked for live hands, it made it a little bit more complicated. Because I want to make sure this puppet is as cheap as possible, I'm trying to use everything I've got. Unfortunately, that meant that I couldn't really leave a gap when I cut out my pattern here. Usually, when you cut out a pattern, you leave a little bit of a gap of fabric so that you can have a seam line so that your pattern doesn't get affected. But that can't happen here because I did not plan or prepare. So I've got this line, and to make sure that I'm using as little space of the actual pattern as possible, I'm going up through the bottom and all the way through, bringing it round and rinse and repeating that all the way along so that the arm can be the size that it's meant to be, and I haven't impacted it too much with my misdoings. Alrighty, so I have sewn all the way down one side, and then where it was open at the end, I've sewn that shut as well, leaving a gaping hole at the top. And that gaping hole is for us to now turn it outside in, and if you struggle to get everything inside out, outside in, just get a pen to really shove it on there through. Because I'm away from home and I didn't prepare for this at all, I've had to resort back to my old ways, and that is using a pillow I no longer care about. And I've attacked it a little bit, and I'm gonna stuff it now. So I'm just gonna bring little bits of it, roll it up so it kind of fits a little bit better, and push it through into the shape. I also like to use my pen to shove the stuffing in as well, because sometimes I find it's a bit complacent to get into those crevices. And this stuffing seems really, really smooth and like quite slippery almost, but that's fine because it's free. We've got something that looks like this, and now the time has come to place it onto the hand that we've got here. If you wanted to use this section here as the forearm part of the arm, you could just as easily stick it here, and then you've got a little bit of extra length, but I quite like to put it just underneath the thumb. So that's where we're going to start pinning it to. Now for this, I am just going to put the glove on so that I've got some structure and I don't pierce the other side. And I'm going to roughly have a look at where I want it to be, checking in as well with the one I've already done. So this might be a little bit fiddly. I'm just using my God-given large chin to keep that in place. I'm sure there's a much easier way to put this on. Okay, so we've pinned that into place. The open bit that I haven't sewed up is up here, and then the bit that I've sewn already is down here. And now I'm going to stitch that together. When I do sew this in, you see this little flap here? I want to make sure that's just turned in ever so slightly. So when I connect these together, you get sort of more of a seamless look than if I was to just leave that open and you get all that ridge there of the end of the fabric. So as I sew around, I'm going to try and keep it circular shape, but I'm just going to tuck this little bit underneath so that you get more of a seamless finish. It's kind of a little bit fiddly. Just take your time with it, going around. If you can as well, I do find having a hand in it makes it quite useful, because then you don't risk sewing all the way through the glove that you've made. And just like that, we've got an arm, and now all we need to do is attach it. I might have to turn her around a little bit to do this, which is why I'm going to share with you that earlier I told you that I didn't have enough fabric to finish her. And it was a late night panic, and I was trying to think what I could do in the very rural part of Norfolk that I'm currently in, because there's no way that I could get my hands on any more fleece in time. I performed some surgery And this is how I got the stuff that made this part. Now look, I was desperate. There was no way out. At one point I was thinking of making her arms a completely different colour, but it just wouldn't have made sense. So in the heat of the moment, it got to about 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe midnight. This was my solve for it. I'm ashamed of it. I have to say, I skinned her alive, but you're not going to see it in the finished product, so it is fine. And if anything, it is just wasted fabric. Once she's got her costume on, it's just not even going to be seen. So I thought it was okay to do. But if you see this, as I turn around and try and wiggle her arm in, please don't be alarmed. She is recovering from surgery, which will be sorted at some point soon. Bless her. So the next step is to connect the arm, and for that I've got a little gaping hole here that I left as I built my bodice. So I'm going to get this thing here and I'm going to begin literally by just wiggling it in until it sits in a place that I'm happy with. And then I'm going to bring her around and have a look about sort of how similar both of my arms are in length, because I want to make sure that I kind of get that bang on. And once I'm kind of sure of that, I'm going to get these little flaps that I've got for her shoulders and curl them in around the foam. I'm going to stitch her arm into the cavity. I do say cavity a lot, I've realised. It's something that I've picked up on a lot, and I can only apologise. We just keep seeming to be dealing with cavities an awful lot. And I'm just going to bring that needle through so that we can encourage that piece of fabric to kind of stay curved. And then I'm going to bring that arm up as much as I can, and I'm going to go back in and through the arm itself. So all the way back through, make sure that you're going into the arm, bring it back out again, and kind of just try and connect it as best you can all the way around the little gap here. So once again, I'm pretty sure there's a better method to this as well, but I just prefer to get really underneath into the arm so that I can really see what's going on and make sure that it's at the angle that I want it to be at. So I may look like a fool, but I'm doing this with purpose. And this is what I do every time, just to make sure that it's at the position that I want it to be. I would like to address, because it's been brought to my attention in this room right now, that there is a very terrifying thing behind me. I just want to let you know that was my first ever puppet. Although Clive the Cupcake was my first ever puppet, my first ever puppet, like human looking, was this. This was a puppet version of me, and it's big because I printed off the pattern 4 times the size without knowing it, and because I didn't know anything, so we just went with it. And she's the one I left behind. Okay, and here we have it. We have Ramona's hands nicely fitted onto her body so she can move and wave around. I've never actually done these properly before, and I really like it. I love the movement that you get. So once again, to operate a puppet like this, you need one person doing one hand in the body and then another person doing the other hand, just so you can get that lovely movability. But here's what we've got so far with Ramona. I'm loving how she's coming along. I'm probably gonna continue building her on TikTok, so look out for that. But next week we will be resuming our normal puppets when I get back home to them. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy yourself and you found it relaxing in any way, then please subscribe and ring that bell so that you can be told when we next upload another session. Thank you so much again, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.